Hi, I'm Chris Sears, and welcome to Makin Music. I'm here with Andy Wise, and he's played Sabian cymbals for over 2 decades. Andy, could you tell us a little about what Sabian has meant to you as far as a drummer?
Well, sure. Hi, Chris. Sabian is an incredible company. What they do is they listen to drummers. Their bottom line is not necessarily making the profit, even though it probably is, but I can't see it. I see that their bottom line is making sure that everyone's taken care of, that they listen to all drummers, and they make the products in accordance with what the drummer wants. And so the drummers can make their own personalized sound out of the product that they have, kind of like their product line is like the colors of an artist's palette. They have just so many choices, and if the choice isn't there, Sabian makes sure that they have that choice for the drummer.
That's great. Now, recently you played in the Monterey Jazz Festival. Now, can you tell us about that experience and the fact that it was 50 years? You know, that had to be just, overwhelming to be able to be there and participate in that event.
That was incredible. I thought what would be more appropriate than to have some of the best Monterey musicians being featured at the 50th Monterey Jazz Festival. What I did was select 16 artists, 3 vocalists, 13 artists, and every song was a different mix of musicians featuring all of the different artists, and every song was a different configuration of musicians. It was just a wonderful experience. We did an extended 90-minute set on the finale of the garden stage at the festival.
Wow.
Standing ovation, the whole works. It was great.
That's incredible. How was it working with so many musicians in a short period of time?
It was incredible because the logistics of getting rehearsals together, I mean, there were 15 band leaders out of the 17, so they all had their schedules, but everyone was very cooperative and said, anything you want to do is just fine with us. We're just honored to be doing this. And so it was easy to work with. Besides, they were all my friends, too, because I've worked with them all in the past.
That's nice. Well, thanks for being here today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
We're going to cut to a quick clip of Andy playing. If you want to check him out, make sure to go to google.com and just type in Andy Wise. You'll be able to find tons of links and see him play. You could also check out www.guitarshowcase.com. If you want some more info on Andy, we're going to have links up the next couple weeks, so make sure to stop by. Thanks, Andy.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Chris Sears, and welcome back to Makin Music. I'm here today with Chris Stankee. He's the Artist Relations Manager for Sabian Cymbals. Now, Chris, thanks for being on the show.
Thank you.
Can you take the time to tell us a little about how Sabian cymbals are made?
Sure. Okay, cymbals are made starting with copper and tin to make bell bronze castings. It starts with 80% copper and 20% tin, and then we do the old family secret of combining these two metals to make B20 bell bronze. And I could show you here when I hit these two base metals. Doesn't sound like anything, right? But using that secret of combining these two metals, you get a B20 bell bronze casting that already has a musical pitch, just in the very infant stages of what will become a cymbal. So what we'll do then is we'll take this casting, we'll heat it back up, we'll take it and put it through rollers and turn it each time, so you get what's a waffle grain that forms at the molecular level of the cymbals, and that strengthens it and makes it pliable. And terms they like to use malleable and ductile and metal, and that just means it's really flexible and you can bend it and beat it
That's
up
why
with
you
a
could- you
stick
could beat
and it
cymbals
doesn't
so hard.
break, you know. So that's where that starts. So after they roll it out, they check it with a micrometer to make sure it's the right thickness for whatever cymbals they're making. And you end up with a big flat piece of metal like this.
Wow.
Now this was totally flat, and then they put it in this drop hammer and
That's
smash
how
it down, and it forms the bell of the cymbal in this flat piece of metal. And then before they do this, though, one of the most important steps happens. They heat it back up to a very specific temperature in an oven when it's just a completely flat piece of metal, and they'll drop it into a vat of water at a very specific temperature, and what that does is temper it, and that freezes the molecules at that precise point that they have to be in order to be able to work the metal, and in order for it to accept a profile and all the hammer marks that you put on it and whatnot. So tempering is one of the most important parts of what we do, and I don't believe this is tempered, and I can just tear pieces of metal right out of the side of this thing when it's untempered. That's how fragile it is. So once it's tempered, you will never be able to do that. You know,
And that's
so
why you can-
it's just like glass. I mean, you can pick chunks out of this all day long because it's not been tempered yet. So that's how fragile it is in the early stages.
So after that process is done, that's one of the parts that makes it so the cymbals will take such a beating.
yeah, absolutely.
That's
Yeah.
incredible.
Obviously, you know, it's very, very fragile in the first part of the stages. But once you temper it, you know, just like they used to do with swords in the Bronze Age, you know, and over and over and over, they freeze those molecules, and immediately the sound is set in the bronze. It's hard, you can't break it, and then from there on, it's just fine tuning of the metal. And what they do next is they'll take it, they'll drill the hole in the middle of the cymbal so it obviously can be put on a stand after they put in the cup like that. And then they'll start putting in the profile of the cymbal. They'll put it in this another big machine that puts the profile on the cymbal, and then they'll finish it off. Depending on what type of series of cymbal that's being made, they'll either hand hammer it to get the profile right where it needs to be, and then they'll take it to the lathe machine once the profile is set into the cymbal, and they shave off that dirty outside finish that you just saw in that blank, and that's how you get the shiny bronze that you see here on a finished cymbal. So that's the quick definition of how a cymbal's made.
So Chris, cymbals all basically look the same to a lot of people. Can you tell us a little bit about the differences in looks and how they're made?
Sure. Well, it starts with the metal. You know, I just showed you B20 bell bronze. The only other metal we use to make cymbals right now is B8 sheet bronze, and it has a more copper penny-like color to it.
That's this inside plate here?
Yeah, it tends to be much brighter sounding because there's more copper in it, which is it just contributes to more of the brightness in the sound than the B20 bell bronze has, which you see looks a little bit more. Sometimes people mistake it for brass or a gold kind of color. So that's the two difference in the way you tell the difference between the two types of cymbals. So B8 bronze is much brighter, and B20 is a little bit more flexible in what we're able to do to it to change the sound of the cymbal. And the two major ways to tweak the sound of a cymbal is by directing the vibrations through the metal and also across the surface of the cymbal. And the first way we do that is with the hammer marks. You know, you see all the different dimples in these cymbals, some of them more pronounced than others. What happens when you hammer the metal is the vibrations travel faster through those dimples. So basically just redirecting vibrations every time the vibration travels through the metal. And with the different size hammer marks and the different force that you hit the bronze with, it changes the sound of the cymbal. Sometimes in large ways, sometimes in small ways. So that's one of the major things we do is hand hammer cymbals. And the century-old technique of art of hand hammering cymbals is the most traditional way of tweaking that sound. And we also use several different machines that have different types of hammer marks that direct the vibrations in different ways. And it's pretty cool, you know, if you like to geek out on cymbals,
Yeah,
you know,
that
to
sounds really
get to
cool.
know it at that level. You know, it's really neat.
So does that have a big part in as far as how fast the cymbal's going to decay?
Absolutely. We did an experiment a couple years ago where we took some pieces of plexiglass, thick plexiglass, and we took it to each one of the hammers that we use in the factory, and we put the plexiglass underneath it, and what we found was, and what we suspected all along was, the plexiglass would break just in the same way the vibrations would shoot through the bronze. So for example, the AA hammer mark, these little tic-tac hammer marks, you can see there's just 1,000 of them on this one cymbal here, that shoots the vibrations directly out of the side of the hammer mark. So you get a much more high-end, poignant type of tone out of the cymbal, and it sustains longer because the vibrations are directed concentrically in circles around the cymbal instead of out the edge. So you touch the cymbal and it, you know, relaxes really fast. So there's some trade-offs in what it does to the tone. You know, the AAX, it looks like, almost like a BB hole in a pane of glass. It just kind of spiders out, really short and quick, and just a lot more mild, not like the AAA hammer where the marks just immediately go out very far. You can tell it's a really strong punch. You know, it's like, you know, being stepped on by, you know, a 90-pound little lady with a pair of high heels. You know, it's going to hurt a lot. It's probably going to puncture you, right? As opposed to, you know, somebody that would weigh, you know, if I were to step on you with my whole shoe, it's probably not going to hurt you that bad. Well, it may, but it's just the difference in how the force is put into the metal and how the vibrations are directed. So the hand hammering, just like you might expect, is completely random. Depending on, you know, what hammer is being used, what craftsman is hammering the cymbal, all the marks will be completely different. So every hand-hammered cymbal has got completely unique character.
As far as I know, Sabian is one of the last companies around that actually has someone there hitting it with a hammer.
We're really proud of that. You know, we're not making car bumpers here. You know, we'd be able to automate this stuff, but then you're not getting a unique, high-quality, human-crafted instrument. We still see a lot of value in that, and we think most drummers do too. So, you know, it costs a little bit more, but to get that centuries-old craftsmanship, it's the way it has to be done. You know, so that's one way to change the sound of the cymbals through the hammer marks, by directing those vibrations. Now the other way is by the lathing. Now I showed you that raw cymbal there. Here's another example of a cymbal that has not been lathed. You see it's just got the natural, raw, dirty finish on top.
Right.
And gives it a little bit drier of a tone because the vibrations really can't move across the surface. It's all coming through the bronze. So this being a ride cymbal, you're going to get a lot more articulation and dryness out of the cymbal because the vibrations aren't traveling across the surface. But the trade-off is you don't get that real bright, sparkly, and good crash type, brilliant type of sound. Exactly. So the two different lathe patterns that we use are the traditional wide, deep lathe. And if you think about it, if you're walking across the field, you know, it's easier to walk across the field that's flat and not a whole lot of peaks and bumps and valleys and whatnot. Well, the deep, wide traditional lathe, like this China right here, as opposed to this lathe right here. And what I'm talking about is the surface, just the ripples across the surface here.
And how fine and close together the lathing is done.
So when I strike a cymbal that has the deep, wide lathing, the vibrations going across the surface have to climb out over all these big waves that have been created in the surface. And what that does is it makes the cymbal sustain longer, and it also gives you more high-end punch to the cymbal. And a little bit more brightness because of that, because it's withholding the vibrations concentrically in a circle a little bit longer than the cymbals that don't have this deep wide lathe. Like this signature Virgil Donati saturation crash, for example, has the pinpoint lathing on top. Now this one, you just strike it and the vibrations just gliss off of the surface. So now the trade-off is you get a much quicker response out of that cymbal. A cymbal with the wide lathe, you have to hit it a little bit harder in order to get it to open up and speak its real voice. But the pinpoint lathe cymbals, you just touch them, they open up, respond immediately, but you probably trade off a little bit of the very long sustain and very high-end, high frequencies that you get out of an AA cymbal, for example.
Can you show us a few of the differences between, can we pick out some symbols?
Yeah,
and show us
absolutely.
some?
Well, just to show you the biggest difference between the two lathe patterns, it's pretty obvious to see on this AA raw bell dry ride, the deep, wide, traditional tonal grooves.
Right.
And then on this Neil Peart Paragon ride cymbal, you can see the pinpoint example of the lathe that we use. And
Right, it's really, even when you touch it, it's really fine.
Yeah.
Compared to this, it's like you drastically feel the, you know, going down like you're running your
Yeah.
fingers down a brick wall or
Yeah.
something.
And that all subtly affects the way the cymbal's going to sound. Now, there are many other things we can do to change the sound of the cymbal. Let me walk over here and I'll show you a couple of examples. There's a few secret little tricks we can do to the bronze that make very unique properties happen in a cymbal. And one of them is just to make the metal even more flexible than it already is. And I can do things like this. You know, this is an 18-inch Evolution Crash, and I can just bend it. It's so pliable.
Yeah, I
And,
know,
you
when I buy cymbals, that thought of bending a cymbal like that never crosses my mind. I'd be too afraid to damage it.
Oh, no, and this is one of the most high-quality crashes we make, and you just touch it.
It's
just
beautiful.
immediately opens up. So we have
Yeah.
those little secret tricks we do. You know, one obvious one is this bell is unfinished. And you'll notice on a lot of our cymbals, the bells are unfinished. We leave them unlathed.
Right.
On the cymbals that sustain, all the 1, 2, and 3K mid-range, that real piercing kind of sound you hear, like when you hit a Chinese cymbal, for example, that really hurts your ears almost when you hit it. You can dial that down a little bit, just like an EQ on a stereo, by leaving the bell unfinished, because in a cymbal that sustains, that's where those tones come from, is out of the crown of the cymbal. And plus, you can actually use the bell in your
Use the
crash
bell.
cymbals, which is something that nobody's really ever done because the cymbals are so thin in crashes in order to be able to open up and speak that you haven't really been able to do that before. So just something new that we
Something
created.
different,
Mhm.
something more. I like that it makes the cymbal a lot more versatile. You could use
Yeah.
it in a lot more applications.
Right,
that
right.
way.
You got it. One other thing, sometimes we find things by accident. You know, we were experimenting making tambourine jingles out of the B20 Bell Bronze with some scrap cymbals. And Dave Weckel, a great jazz fusion artist, was up at the factory developing his Evolution series with us, and heard a couple of these cymbals with the holes punched out of it on a tree, and he's like, "Man, that's like that broken Tony Williams sound from the '60s, man. I gotta have that." And you know, we just kind of rolled our eyes a little bit and say, "Oh boy, how are we
Great.
gonna make a cymbal with holes in it?" And that's one way we came up with making the metal more flexible in order to be able to do this and have it not break
Right.
at all. So this is one of our most popular cymbals, believe it or not. Sometimes, you know, you just take a shot, throw something funky out there, and you end up with a big success, which is the Ozones have certainly been for us.
So, as far as the cymbals, these three cymbals in particular look just worlds different. You know?
Right.
What is how is the finish done on them to make them so drastically different?
Well, this is the way the cymbal looks before it's ever got a lathe on it. Just leave it as is after it's hammered and the profile's into it. Then we take it to the lathe, and this is the way it looks right off of the lathe. They just shave off the dirty stuff right out of the cymbal. It just comes off in little shavings. They're spinning it really fast, and they just drag a carbon knife across the front, and it just comes right off. And then, so that's the natural finish, as we
Right.
call it. Now, the brilliant finish is when we take the cymbal after it's already been lathed, and we take it to a buffer, and they put it up against a high-speed wheel with a buffing compound, and put this real mirror-like finish on it. Now, everybody always asks, well, what does it do to the sound of the cymbal? Well, with so many processes before it, and hand lathing, maybe hand hammering, no two hammer marks are ever in the same spot. You know,
Yeah.
the weights of the cymbals are always just in, you know, slightly different tolerances. And there's so many things that affect the sound of the cymbal before that, it's really hard to say. But what it does do is it heats the metal back up to 400 degrees. And anytime you start messing with the cymbal and heat after it's already been tempered, you do change it slightly. And one thing it does is it makes the metal a little more flexible, it makes it respond a little bit faster. It may change the frequency slightly. You know, it's hard to tell. You know?
So you guys actually take the time to buff the cymbals. It's not like a coating or something. It's actually someone like pressing it against a buffing wheel.
Holding it right up against the buffing wheel.
And it gets heated
very
up to
dirty
400
job,
degrees.
man. You got to love those guys because it's a very dirty job.
Wow.
Yeah, and they're wearing
baking
thick gloves.
cymbals or
and,
baking cakes.
Yeah, right. You got it.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, why don't you play a couple of the cymbals for us and
Sure.
let us hear some of the differences.
Right on. Cool. I'll do. All right, well, let me show you our entry-level cymbal model is the B8. Very high quality sheet B8 bronze. Cymbals can be very, very expensive, and I think I've explained a little bit maybe why, the reason why they're so expensive with all the hand craftsmanship and whatnot. This is one of those great cymbals that you can get into and not have to spend hundreds and hundreds of dollars on to get kids to have a great cymbal to be able to play on.
So that's the perfect cymbal for someone just starting out,
Absolutely.
just getting acquainted to drumming.
Yeah,
Great.
you got it.
All right, and then from there, where does it go?
Well, we've got B8 Pro, which is very similar to the B8 cymbals, except it comes in a brilliant finish. It's hammered a little bit differently, a little bit different profiles, you know, different thickness. You know, the thicker the cymbal is, the higher the pitch. So B8 Pro is a little bit thicker usually than B8, so you get a little bit more high pitch out of it, a little more cut. I've even got pros using B8 Pro,
Wow.
Chinese cymbals and ride cymbals because they like that real high-end cut. Out of these particular cymbals. And from there it goes to our XS20, which is the best entry-level cymbal on the market. It is cast from the same castings I showed you earlier as the most expensive cymbals we make. And then from there we step into the Aaa series of cymbals. These have that little tic-tac hammer mark I was telling you about. The Aaa is cast B20 bell bronze. There's many different variations of cymbals in this series. The Aaa Metal X, for example, is a great, all the heavy players, even they like great sounding cymbals, and it's usually perceived that the better sounding cymbals are a little bit thinner. If you go too thick on the cymbal, that's when it kind of starts to sound a little platey and bongy and belly and kind of like a trash can almost. You get so much pitch when you hit it. Microphones do not like pitch in crash cymbals. You don't want to hit it and go bong. You want it to hit and go shh. So the Aaa series is our first professional cast series. This is an Sabor model that we make for percussionists, timbali players, congueros. It's got an unfinished bell. Well, this has got a unique hammer that we use for the Sabor, and it's also got a little turned up lip on the edge. It's not completely rounded profile. It's actually got a profile that goes a little bit like this on the end. And then the AAX series is one of our most popular series. This was a big innovation in cymbal making. This was really the first modern cymbal, okay? The AA cymbals and the HH cymbals were made the same way cymbals were made around the turn of the century. You know, Robert Zildjian's father introduced the tic-tac AA hammer mark that's still used today. I think some of those machines are about that old too. If you see them, it's amazing they even work. And then the hand hammered, of course, goes back centuries. Well, music's changed a lot since then. You know, in the 50s and 60s, you start, you know, the introduction of the guitar player and the stacks of amps. Well, light, dark cymbals aren't going to cut through that wall of amps. So we had to, you know, tweak and change. First, we made cymbals a little bit thicker, so they're a little bit higher pitched and brighter. They can poke through the amplified music. Okay, and then the mid-'80s, you know, you had people start to use, late '80s, in-ear monitors were invented. So now you've got drummers with just high-quality studio sound right in their ears, so you don't need that super big, bright cymbal that's going to cut through everything because it's right there, the same way it is in a recording studio. So AAX was a big innovation. It's a really responsive cymbal. It's got that, we invented with the pinpoint lathe. That's the first cymbal with the pinpoint lathe ever used. It's got a dime-size hammer mark that you know, changes the way the cymbals sound. These are some of the first cymbals we used with an unfinished bell like that.
It's hard to see, but it's in there.
Yeah, and you just
got to get it at the right light, and I really see what you're talking about.
I have more artists, rock artists especially, using this cymbal now with in-ear monitors than any other cast cymbal that we have. Wow. Just because it's so smooth and so versatile. It's really an even spread across the frequency range. So it's a great cymbal. It's very durable too because it's a little more flexible. That's a big misconception, you know. A heavy cymbal, stiff cymbal,
Yeah.
is not the most durable cymbal. Those break the fastest because they do not give when you hit them. A lot of that has to do with the way they're played too, you know.
Yeah.
You can't just go straight into a cymbal, you know, like you're pounding the nail with a hammer.
Right, they're done
You've gotta-
hammering it.
Yeah, yeah, we're done hammering it. So what you need to do is just come at it with more of a glancing blow, a little bit of an angle off the side. You just play through, but off to the side of the cymbal rather than playing right into it. And you never want to mount them too flat either. This is a very bad angle to hit a cymbal with. That's going to break fairly quickly. But if you play it a little more this angle and just come at it like that, you're going to get more response and the pure tone out of the cymbal, and it'll last a whole lot longer for you too.
Cool.
So let's take a look at some of these other series here. This is the Vault Crash. This has the AA tic-tac hammer combined with the innovative pinpoint lathe pattern.
Right.
So you get the great combination of a quick response and a real brightness and tone that the AAXs don't have with that hammer mark. And AA Raw Bell Dry Ride here with the unfinished bell. It's a really bright bell. It'll cut through anything. Great for Latin music, great for rock, very versatile cymbal. And then if you look at the choppers here, these little guys, we started making these for Blue Man Group. They had a few different pieces of music that they were using, and they needed something bright and very, very quick, and these just did the trick. They can mount right on a cymbal stand so that you can have the versatility of mounting them where you want, and boy, are they bright and loud.
Now, this is also a signature series, right?
Yes.
We've whose signature line is this?
This is JoJo Meyer's signature, Fierce Ride. They're also Fierce Crashes, and it's got a lot of what I call heat in the tonality. It's a very hot sounding cymbal, and when you hear it, you know what I mean. You just got a real trashy, dirty kind of quality to it. Very dry ride cymbal sound, lots of stick, not a whole lot of sustain. Very, you know, interesting slapstick when you hit it. Some ride cymbals, if they don't sound good when you crash on the edge, try slapsticking it. And that's with the shoulder of the stick right here struck on the bow of the cymbal, rather than striking it like a crash cymbal down here on the edge. You just smack it on the top. Not with the tip, though. It's got to be done with the shoulder because the tip won't open it up enough.
Well, I'm Chris Sears, and thanks for watching this episode of Makin' Music. It was a great pleasure to have Chris Stankee come all the way out here to talk about all the different Sabian cymbals, and I feel completely educated, and I'm sure the people at home really understand the differences. If you have any more questions, feel free to check out Sabian's website at www.sabian.com, or you could always come in to Guitar Showcase or your local music store and feel free to ask their Sabian expert. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week.